Hi, everyone. Welcome again to an episode of Leadership and Learning. I am humbled to be here with Addonis Hawkins, who is at Raytheon Technologies. He's a logistics analyst, which I need him to clarify of exactly what that is, because I work with data scientists and data analysts, but logistics analyst is new to me. And so that's why I've invited him here today.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. And Dr. Gwen, thank you for inviting me to this session. And I'm so ecstatic to be here today. My name is Addonis Hawkins. I'm a 30-year active duty veteran of the U.S. Army. I have served in multiple countries while on active duty. So I had a very vast experience while being in the military. I originally joined the military as a cavalry scout, which is a 19 Delta. And thank goodness that my eyes are not that well. So it quickly disqualified me. About 2 weeks later, I found out I had to go back to the MEP station in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And I selected or was given my MOS of 55 Bravo, which was ammunition specialist. So it kind of led me down the rim of logistics. Now that I'm retired, I am a logistics analyst with Raytheon, in which I am surprisingly still working with munitions and missiles. So that was a plus win-win for me when I got this new job position. But a logistics analyst within the Raytheon structure is all about maintaining, updating the system and information within the system on different missile items, going through a recertification process where they will take a missile that is already in the hands of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and they take that missile and they bring it back to a factory and they make upgrades to it. And sort of a one-word thing, they upgrade the missile with the missile software types and different parts that they put new onto the missile. So I track that process for when these items are coming in the factory, being recertified and refitted for new parts and software, and get those items ready for movement back to the fleet and the service members for utilization.
Oh, Adonis, I think you're being modest. You're making it sound like it's just kind of you're a pass through, but you're not, right? I mean, I work with all technical people here in Silicon Valley, so your engineers and your scientists, of course, and there's a set of double, triple PhD folks who go through a lot of training for their technical knowledge. And as I understand it, as a warrant officer, and you were a chief warrant officer, it takes a lot of technical skills and know-how. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. So technical aspect as far as understanding regulation guidelines within my field of logistics. And also we have some systems that we utilize as well. So with that, tying all that together, understanding, like, say, for instance, storage incompatibility. So certain munition items you can't store together because it can be a volatile situation. Somehow, some way, the makeup of particular certain munition items are not allowed to be stored together in one magazine, igloo, storage warehouse. So on the technical aspect of that, you have to be knowledgeable of those type of munition items and the requirements for storage. So that's one technical aspect of it. Also, another technical aspect of it is using the systems that we utilize to do our logistics, supply, and services within my field. So we have systems like the standard Army ammunition system, which is called SAS mod back in the day, SAS modification. So that's what we utilize to track inventory and issue and receive our munitions items into any ammunition supply point. So that's from the technical standpoint. We receive training from the time that we come into the military, into the Army. We go to the process of advanced individual training where the school is now located at Fort Lee, Virginia. But at that school, we learn how to be an ammunition specialist. So from the time that when I came in as a private first class E3, back in 1991, I learned I had several different tiers of military educational training that I went through to help me prepare myself as in the technical aspect of it. And also I have some civilian training as well that helped prepare me as not only technical, but as being in the leadership as well. So I have had some very good training throughout my time in the military, be it either military or civilian.
Let me roll back on that. Initially, right? If you think about when you first came into the army, there was something in Adonis that has to be about how Adonis grew up, or about your preferences and knowing yourself as you were a child growing up. How did you know you wanted to get into the technical realm? Because not everybody does. I mean, I've got a couple of recruit friends who didn't choose that path, especially going the warrant officer path. How did you know that that was your thing?
Well, I'm going to say this because it's a true story. And a lot of people may not believe me. Like I said, I came in the Army in 1991. So I grew up single family household much of my younger life. And back in the days, of course, I used to like to watch cartoons. So I kind of enjoy watching it today as well with my kids. But for those of you who are my age, and I'm dating myself, I was born in 73. There was a cartoon out there called G.I. Joe, the Great American Hero. And that was awesome. So it was a cartoon illustration of military operations, basically. And in addition to that, advertisement, the Army uses that very well. And I said this at my promotion when I got promoted to W4, Chief Warrant Officer 4, and I played the song on for the commercial. And the commercial was about some guys. I believe we were in a C-130 back then, and they all doing airborne operations, and they jumping out of the airplane. And I believe it was like a Gamma Goat type vehicle that they airdropped as well. And one of the guys, when he landed, he had his K-pot on, a cup of coffee, and he said, "Morning, First Sergeant." And the commercial, of course, went, "Hey, we do more before 6 a.m. than most people do all day." So that kind of like inspired me to want to join the military at a young age. So that kind of embedded with me from the time I was in middle school. I always had that mindset to leave home, join the military. So that's what I did. And going in high school, it allowed me to join the Naval Junior Officer Training Course, which I achieved the rank of ensign. So from there, I started out, of course, as a petty officer. And the 3 years that I spent in the program, I made it to the rank of ensign. From there, that allowed me to come into an Army as a PFC in E3. And I joined and I left for boot camp in November of 91. And I haven't looked back since then. I've been inspired by I guess, the commercial, number one. Number two, the cartoon. And I guess, that all gave me that desire to serve. I would say that.
Oh, and that warrant officer, as I understand it, because our mutual friend Tony had to educate me on this, but warrant officer is a more technical track, right? Versus any other position in the Army. How did you get to that decision-making point and you decided to go warrant officer track?
My first experience seeing a warrant officer was 94, 95 timeframe. I was in Germany at Vilsec, and the warrant was the accountable officer. So he managed the entire account of all the munitions and explosives at that location. From there, I didn't have too much engagement with him, but I just knew of him. And when I got to Stewart in 96, I had some engagement with the warrant there, and she was basically leading the section there. And she basically managed the division's ammunition and explosives. She managed how the division would deploy with the munitions, be doing the EDREs and things like that, having the munitions identified at the ammunition supply point, and things like that. So that kind of gave me that segue into the arena of being a technical subject matter expert in the ammunition field. I was all about being an NCO in my early years in the Army. I didn't cross over to the rank of warrant officer until I was 12 years in the military. So today, that's a dinosaur in today's Army. You have some folks that are crossing over to be a warrant at 5 years in, 7 years in. And these guys are rock stars. But I look back at my life and say, I could have done this much better, much faster than what I'd done. I made the rank of Chief Warrant Officer 5 at 26, going into 27 years in. So I look back on my career and say, hey, I could have done that better if I just prepared myself mentally and prepared myself to go up the ladder faster. But as being a technical expert, a warrant officer, when I look at my career as a non-commissioned officer, and I enjoyed leading troops, that was the highlight of my day. I was at the rank of staff sergeant, got notification. As you know, true story is that my first packet submission, I didn't get selected. And I was kind of hurt and downtrodden at the time. I said, I'm going to submit again. So that's what I did. I was working on my packet to get resubmitted. And at that time, the Army did something that hadn't been done before. They had an unannounced board because the Army realized we need more folks. And fortunately, I was one of the guys that got selected and didn't even know about it. A friend of mine emailed me and said, "Hey, congratulations on getting selected." I said, "Dude, I didn't get selected." I thought he was being a butt, but he wasn't. He was being honest. And I went and I went and logged on and looked at my files online, the HRC site. And I said, "Wow, I did get selected." And lo and behold, here comes my master sergeant. And he tells me, "Hawk, hey, you made E7. You got selected for E7." I'm like, "No, I didn't." I know I didn't. He was like, "You did." The first son told him. And I was like, wow. So I had a decision to make. You want being an NCO or go the technical route where I get to more responsibilities, basically. And back then, the packet was a very, very rigorous process. I mean, we don't have these form filling forms. We didn't have those back in early 2000. So, it was all Word documents and working through putting your resume in a Word document. So it was a tough process for me, at least. So I was happy that I was successful at putting it together. So when I got selected, I said, all that hard work I did and the aspect of just wanting to be higher responsibility, higher rank in the military. And also I was looking at my retirement as well. I was already at the 12-year mark. So I knew that retirement numbers look a lot better as a warrant officer than it did as an enlisted. It did. So that played a part in my decision. And ultimately, the responsibility and the roles that I would have as a warrant, much, much different than a non-commissioned officer. So when I looked at all of that, I said, yeah, I'm going to go warrant. So I decided to take the commission. And I did. I went down to Fort Rucker, Alabama in 2003, November 2003. And we graduated in January of 2004. And it's been all smooth sailing since then. I was able to create several different ladders or steps of very professional education that the Army says we need to have to be that subject matter expert, to be technically proficient at your job. And the time frame for me, I was very lucky to hit those benchmarks in my time in my career. Like I would get promoted to W-2, so there were requirements for W-3, and I was very lucky to complete those educational requirements, those additional training that I needed prior to the next selection time frame for the next rank. And that's what I did. I focused on that. I took advice and guidance from the senior guys in my field and other fields, the maintenance fields, field artillery field. And I took advice from those senior guys who were W4s and W5s already. I looked at them and see what they were doing to be successful to get promoted. I took a very high interest in my annual evaluations. I learned something when I was a non-commissioned officer, when I went through one of my evaluations, and I was a E6 and I believe it was an E5 at the time. The senior EO told me, which was the E6, she was the section chief. She said to me, she was like, "Well, Sergeant Hawkins, I need to prepare your annual evaluation. What did you do this whole year?" And it shocked me. I'm like, "What?" Yeah. So that was my first experience with saying, hey, if you want your career to be successful, you need to be involved in every aspect of your career, even your evaluations, because that's what the board members look at for you to get selected for promotion. So that put a chip on my shoulder because I was like, what am I doing what I did this entire year? I'm out here in the motor park every day with these soldiers doing maintenance on these vehicles, making sure that our section is ready to go to war if need be, ready for these training events, accountability of munitions, training soldiers how to be soldiers. And you're going to ask me what did I do this year? Oh, no. So from that time point forward, I took a very high interest in my evaluations. So I would be every year when I got an evaluation ready to be performed on me by my senior leader, I would insist that certain aspects, certain verbiage was in my evaluation, and I did that until I retired, and that helped me out a lot. I would pride myself on writing. I would write a narrative for my senior leader, my supervisor, and that person took out or added in, I made sure at least one or two of my sentences were in that evaluation because I did that myself. And that played a very important part of me as far as moving throughout the ranks and making the next rank within the Army, because I pride myself in that. And so I took many courses, creative writing classes as I went through my civilian education, completing my associates, my bachelor's, and my master's. That helped me with my writing and being able to say certain things on my evaluation and understanding what the Army was looking for to get promoted. I wanted to show the Army that, hey, I'm a valuable asset to the Army, and I'm here to help the Army succeed. I want to help my commanders get to their end state. The commander has an end state in every mission, and as for me, I prided myself in, I have a job to do. I will do my job to the best of my ability, and morally, legally, and ethically, and to do the right thing so that my commander, can be successful. And I pride myself on that because it's not all about me. It's all about the organization and the mission and the people that you're working with and for. So that I pride myself in that aspect as I went throughout my time in the military.
Oh, that's so rich, everything that you just said. I didn't even have to interrupt because you set it all up already. Now, I do want to ask you when it comes to making that bridge, that gap, because that's my clients whom I work with are the really highly technical ones who want to make that leap over to leadership. So running a team. So what qualities do you see from the technical aspect that overlap with leadership qualities? And then what is different where you're like, you need to know how to do these things to be a leader, to get the whole team somewhere?
Yeah, you said it correctly. You need to know how to be a leader in that aspect. So you got to be well versed and experienced and educated on the leadership aspects of it, the different leadership styles, and what leadership style that you fit into. I fit into the servant leadership category myself. That's what I pride myself in. So knowing what leadership style that you carry yourself. And on the technical aspect, ensuring that you are technically proficient. You put those together to help train your subordinates, help train or not train your peers, but help work with your peers and other external agency partners that you would have to work with. So that is very important. I would say this, and I'm holding fast to this, because a lot of people don't know when they go to college. A lot of people don't know what they want to major in. What do you desire? What do you bring to the table? And for me, I am a kind of a bossy person. So I had this style since I was really born with it. I'm not a natural born leader, but because they say leaders are not born, they are made, according to who you ask. So I use that drive in me to learn as much as I can about leadership. I take bits and pieces from other leaders that I've worked for, and I put it in my toolkit. So everybody in the Army said, hey, take that and put it in your toolkit. So that's that imaginary belt toolkit that you have, all this experience that you gain. And I take that and I put it in my toolkit. I had some awesome leaders that took care of me and that I emulated throughout my career. I had awesome subordinates that took care of me and did the work that I asked them to do. I had awesome peers that gave me guidance and advice to help me out. I mean, all of that goes into being a leader. And, you have to have that. You have to have that. You have to have empathy also. You have to understand everybody's not going to be the same. Everybody's not that soldier with discipline. And you're going to have some people that can't get it together initially. But what good traits do they have in them? What can you help develop in them so they can use it in the future? And that's kind of things that I see from a leadership perspective that you have to bring to the table. I took a lot of courses in leadership. My associate's degree is in business administration. My bachelor's degree is in management, and my master's degree is in strategic leadership. And every aspect of my educational development, I use that as the foundation to build on to the next. So I learned just different things at each level of educational levels that I went through. So I pride myself in that. And yeah, I didn't have a roadmap to tell me this. I use a lot of what I'm seeing in the world, what I have experienced and other people have told me. And I look at myself and I say, what do I need to do? What do I want to do? And how would I like to do that? How do I achieve my goals? And that's what I did. Many people probably would not get a degree, a master's degree in strategic leadership. Like, what does that mean? How do you apply that? And some people would not know how to do that. And for me, it just added to my foundation of what I have on the inside of me and my knowledge and my drive to be a good leader. I learned things like how to do a Baldrige assessment on an organization. That was my final project for my master's degree. That took me several months to complete. And it was a very great learning experience. And when I got done with it, I was surprised to hear back from my professor. He said, "Hey, can I use this in my future classes?" I'm like, wow, I was impressed. I'm like, sure, use it, sir. By all means, use it. Master's degree, I finished with a 4.0 with honors. I'm like, oh man, I'm stoked. Far beyond these engineers and what they achieve, and they have the mental capacity to produce these technical things like complex missiles and things like that. You need guys like me as well. You got to have the guy like me to give you your missiles when you need it, to ship your missiles somewhere, to account for your missiles, to store it correctly, to make sure you're not destroying property inadvertently and things like that. So you need a guy like me on your team to take that aspect of that mission. And I'm using this terminology because I'm all military.
No, but
Take
that's
that
totally
aspect.
true, because
Yeah.
we're all about mission. Even it doesn't matter what kind of company or organization you work in, but there's that mission, and then you've got the different cross-functional groups that have to work together and collaborate. But one last question for you. Can you tell a story that you have about your most challenging moment?
Oh my goodness. That just recently, I believe it was around 2019, I believe it was, in Kuwait. And I was serving as the accountable officer for the ASP in Kuwait. I was dual headed at the time. So I was at First Theater Sustainment Command out of Fort Knox, Kentucky. I was the senior logistician for ammunition at the time. So I had a full bird colonel that I reported to, well, the major lieutenant colonel first, then the colonel and one-star general at the time. And I reported directly to them. So kind of a conflict of interest at that position, because when I went forward to Kuwait, I became the accountable officer. So I had two hats on. I was the manager of the munition stocks, and I also was the senior logistics manager to tell the guys at that ASP what to do. During that time frame, I was responsible for roughly $2.3 billion worth of ammunition and explosives in three separate countries. So Kuwait, Qatar, and UAE. And I visited all three countries. I looked at all assets in every country. I actually inventory assets in every country. And I pride myself on that. And I had small teams of individuals at each location. So getting to that, that difficult time was, of course, I am the accountable officer where I am responsible for my government supplies. And also I am the senior logistician of the CENTCOM AOR under CENTCOM to tell the guys at the lower level beneath me how to do your reports, or send it in your reports, ensuring that your reports are up to date, ensure that they are correct, and understanding the whole process of accountability, especially with items like Patriots. So that was a big thing that we had. Of course, the Patriot is a very valued asset that the Army has within the CENTCOM AOR and around the world. So I had one issue where we had an accountability issue, and numbers weren't matching up. Serial numbers weren't matching up. You have a lot of weight on you in that position. The CENTCOM AOR encompasses 22 countries. And of course, we have personnel and equipment in the majority of those. Some of those that we can't even talk about with the missions that they're doing, but we have assets in some countries that people are out there doing missions. So I take my job very seriously. And when we have a discrepancy and with accountability, we got to figure it out. And for the life of me, one unit, I would hate to say the Patriot guys, I love them, just could not get their reports right. And they were saying, "Hey, Chief, we have it. It's right." No, it's not, guy. I'm looking at documentation that showed 2 years ago your unit got issued this. particular item, this particular serial number, it should be on your books. You know what I'm saying? Your numbers are not right. So dealing with another warrant, he thought I was using my position and getting him in trouble. And I was not. I was seriously trying to get the numbers correct. And I was reporting to the commander, the status of the ammunition items spread across the battlefield. So of course, I'm going to tell the truth. We have a discrepancy, nothing major, but we have to have correct information. So we were getting it fixed. And long story short, they got it squared away. They got their books straight. They started reporting correctly because that's what our job is. That's what we needed to do. But the whole entire time, my fellow warrant thought I was, being friendly to his face. And then I go back and submit my report as being something egregious that he did. And I'm like, no, it's not, dude. I'm working together with you. We're a team here, but still all of us have responsibilities to do. You know, I'm the guy that's making sure that stuff is right. You're doing the things right. I need to do my job right. Together, that's what's called teamwork. We all work together. So,
but they don't always see it that way, right?
It don't. Some people think that leaders are getting down on them. I mean, no, dude.
Well, you've got some leaders across the board, whether it be corporate or politics or otherwise, who have given leaders a bad rap. And so that's one of the pieces that I wrote in my dissertation about just bad leadership, toxic leadership. It's a thing. It's a thing, and we can't deny that.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. But I never even thought of myself as being toxic because I always, like I said, had that empathy. You know, how the other person feels about something.
Unfortunately, those same toxic leaders say the same thing. I've never seen myself as a toxic leader.
I think those guys are delusional because they have had some fallen leaders that have done things. They thought they were running the organization correctly. And then, it's not. You had people who were dissatisfied by the way, they're being talked to. They feel that they're not getting the same opportunities as others. And if an individual sees that and they think so, then it has to be true. I feel that way. I've been we'd be at some organizations for 3 years or more. And you could tell immediately within the first 6 months of that being assigned in an assignment, how that climate is. And like I said, just trying to be empathetic about people with people and understanding things. Not to say that I'm a pushover, but I have to use my position of authority. Yeah.
And when you're being fair about it and you're putting your ethics and morals in place, I think that that's the right place to go. I do want to thank you so much for your time, Addonis. I love and agree with everything that you say, and I'm honored. It's been such a pleasure because it's a good reminder to know there are great leaders out there, and servant leadership is still a thing. Yes, people don't like using it anymore, but I'm a big fan of it, and I'm so glad that you're at Raytheon and all the work that you've done to serve our country. So thank you so much for everything, and thank you for your time today.
Oh, it's been a complete honor, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much for this opportunity.